Hello and welcome. I am a hotel AI expert, and I'm really pleased to welcome all of you students of Europe Hotel School to your online learning journey. Now, in the world of hospitality, we pour countless hours into perfecting that guest experience, right? But what happens when a real crisis hits? Well, all those plans can just fall apart if your team isn't stable. So today, we're diving into the essential communication strategies to keep your team grounded when that storm arrives. And this quote right here, it really just says it all. The simple truth is, in a crisis, your team becomes the emotional firewall for your guests. And if your team is feeling confused or scared, you can bet that feeling is going to leak out and impact the guest experience. That's exactly why the most effective crisis management always starts from the inside out. So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to tackle this in 5 key steps. First up, we'll look at the problem itself, what I call the internal storm that every team faces. Then, we'll find our communication anchor. From there, we'll build what I call the pillars of stability, see what leadership in action really looks like. And finally, we'll explore how to recover and build resilience after the crisis is over. Okay, let's start with that internal storm. To really understand how to fix this, we first need to appreciate the unique and pretty intense pressure that a crisis puts on hotel staff. This right here captures the central paradox of our industry during a crisis. Guests show up looking for a safe harbor, right? They want reassurance. But the very people who are expected to provide that calm are, well, they're in the exact same storm. They have to manage their own stress and be the professional response all at the same time. And let me tell you, that dual pressure is immense. Now, imagine you take all that pressure and you add an information vacuum. What do you get? A perfect recipe for chaos. See, the human brain just hates uncertainty. If you don't give it facts, it'll start inventing its own story. And that story is almost always the worst-case scenario. Rumors start to sound like facts, and fear spreads way faster than any official memo ever could. So, how in the world do we fight this internal storm? We need an anchor. And that anchor is strategic, intentional internal communication. It's truly the most powerful tool we have to cut through all that chaos and bring back a sense of calm. But getting this communication right is a delicate balancing act. It's pretty obvious that too little information creates that vacuum for fear we talked about. But here's something that's less obvious and honestly just as dangerous: providing too much information. If you overwhelm your team with raw, unverified, or super technical details, it can be just as paralyzing. The sweet spot, as you can see, is right there in the middle. Balanced, clear, actionable information. That's where you find stability. And this brings us to a really key idea, what we call functional clarity. See, the goal isn't just radical, unfiltered transparency. It's about giving your team precisely what they need to do their jobs effectively and to stay emotionally stable, and nothing more. It's clarity with a purpose. So to achieve this functional clarity, we can lean on a simple framework of 3 essential elements. I want you to think of these as the fundamental pillars that are going to hold your entire team up when things get shaky. These are the 3 questions that every single employee is asking, even if it's subconsciously. Number 1, what is actually happening? Just the basics. Number 2, what specifically is my job right now? And number 3, who is calling the shots? If you can answer these 3 questions decisively, it's the fastest way to slash fear and empower your team to act. You see, when you answer those 3 questions, you're not just sharing information. You're actually building a mental framework for your team. And in a chaotic situation, that structure acts as a powerful antidote to anxiety. It literally shifts the brain's focus from a state of threat to a state of purpose. It lets people focus on their tasks instead of their fears. Okay, so having a framework is one thing, but putting it into practice, that's a whole other ballgame. So this next section is all about the specific actions that leaders have to take to bring these pillars to life. You can never, ever underestimate your nonverbal communication. Your team is looking to you for more than just instructions. They're looking for emotional cues. A calm, composed leader sends a message of stability and control, often way more effectively than words ever could. And on the flip side, an anxious leader will unintentionally broadcast fear to the whole team. Let's make this super practical. On the do side, it's all about being that stabilizing presence. Be visible, acknowledge the stress people are under, and most importantly, listen. And on the don't side, it's about being a filter. Don't project your own anxiety, don't use inflammatory language, and don't overload them with details. Your job is to absorb the chaos so that they can execute with clarity. And this is absolutely critical. This can't just be a top-down broadcast. Opening up two-way communication is so important. First, it makes your team feel heard and valued. But just as importantly, it turns your entire staff into a real-time intelligence network. The front desk, housekeeping, the valets, they see things you don't. Their feedback isn't just nice to have, it's vital information you need to adapt your response. All right, finally, your work as a leader doesn't stop when the immediate danger has passed. The post-crisis phase is just as important, if not more so, for building a resilient team for whatever comes next. Once the crisis is over, it is so tempting to just focus on getting operations back to normal. But that's only half the job. Your team has just been through a really significant, stressful event. A true leader understands that supporting their emotional recovery is every bit as important as, say, restocking the linen closets. So your priorities here are pretty clear. First, you have to sincerely thank your team for their efforts. Pinpoint specific examples of resilience and teamwork. Then, and this is key, bring them into the learning process. Ask them what worked, what didn't. This not only makes them feel valued, but it also gives you invaluable insights to strengthen your crisis plans for the future. And that brings us right to our final and most critical question. All of these strategies we've talked about, clarity, structure, empathy, they're all built on one thing, a foundation of trust. And trust isn't built in the middle of a crisis. It's built long before one ever happens. So as you move forward in your careers, I want you to always ask yourself this. Are you building the kind of trust today that will see your team through the inevitable storm of tomorrow?